Next on the agenda is hearing from members of the audience. Sarah, you've given me one. Is that just it? All right. The board does encourage people to speak before the board. Please limit your presentation to 3 minutes. The board will not typically respond to presentations, but will respond later on. Today we have Jason Fadness, who I think is going to speak with some other people.
Thanks for being here tonight.
Yeah, okay. I'm Danny Peterson. I'm currently a freshman at Southview Middle School, and I'm working with Cool Planet to improve composting in our school's lunchroom.
Hi, I'm Dasha Parker. I'm a freshman at Southview, and I'm working with Danny on the project.
Hi, I'm Abby Berkeley. I'm also a freshman at Southview, and I'm also working with them.
Hello, I'm Jason Fadness, and I'm a junior in Edina High School. I am also a member of SELC, the Student Environmental Leadership Council, and my high school's robotics team. Before I talk about why I am here, I would want to point out Policy 811, the general statement of policy. The student district values creating globally minded citizens who are aware of their collective and individual environmental footprint and who are equipped to manage the consumption of environmental resources, like us. The district will implement its policies and practices to ensure that environmental sustainability is an integral part of district planning, decision-making, and daily operations. So with that in mind, that brings me to the referendum funding, and more specifically, the architectural plans. I would like for the roof to be suitable for solar panels, not now, but in the future, sometime later. One of the reasons why I would like this is the city itself has recently committed to a community solar garden on the Public Works building. So I'm thinking if the city's doing it, then, well, why shouldn't the schools? Just a quick fact that I got from my AP biology textbook. Only about 1% of the visible light that hits a photosynthetic organism is actually converted into chemical energy. So with that in mind, when you think about it, that's a small amount of the light that we actually receive, and yet it's able to fuel all of life on Earth. That, I don't know about you, but that sounds like a pretty good energy source to tap into. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. And we just want, before we leave, we want to invite you to 2 upcoming events. One is this Thursday, and it is a movie about the military transitioning into clean energy. And the other one is like a save the date for April 14th, which is the Edina Environmental Forum. So, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
And we'll probably have our architect address your question on solar energy a little bit later in the evening. Great. Thanks for coming out.
Stick around so you can hear it. Seriously, thank you for coming.
We should also welcome students from Valley View government class here tonight. We welcome them and thank them for being here. So again, enjoy your evening here.
Susan?
We're going to get an update on the facilities. Going to ask Susan, a couple of our consultants are here tonight, and ask them to join us up front as well.
Thank you, Chair Wallen-Friedman and members of the board. I'm joined here by Vaughn Dirks from Mold Architects. You've seen him often, and Jay Pomeroy from AJA Engineering Consulting. So to kind of help us work through some of the updates that we're having here. So we'll just kind of quickly go through some updates for you in the community, and then we're happy to answer some questions as you may have them. So as a reminder that we're moving forward with the implementation of the voters approved last spring. So looking at ways to transform our learning spaces, improve our infrastructure, and enhance our security.
Robert, and on to another subject. We had, as you heard, Vaughn, the presentation from students about alternative energy and how we can keep that in mind in the building. We've talked often about solar panels or other things and found none of them are really cost effective at the moment. But this was a new idea about trying to keep open options for future construction or use future changes. Can you just address what we're doing in that regard, if anything, and what we can do?
Yeah, you're right. We've had a lot of topics along the lines of not only solar energy, but other sustainable options, how we look at operations for the district. when you're looking at any of these, you're really weighing out a number of different factors. You're weighing out first cost, what's it cost to actually put the equipment in. You're weighing out ongoing operational cost, maintenance cost, and you're weighing out the environment or the reason to make the decision in the first place. If you look at it from just a numbers game, you're going to look at a payback of 5 years, absolutely, makes sense to do that. If it's under 10 years, you consider it. If it's over 10, it probably doesn't make sense at this time. And we've really been pushing for solar to be a more viable option. And in new construction, we're at that point right now where it's reaching that tipping point. We've actually talked about the transportation facility as a great example of a project that we could look at implementing a full solar array on the roof for that. The problem comes in with your existing buildings. When we add the solar panels to the roof, there's a number of things that come into play. The structure of the roofs was never designed to hold that additional weight as it is. Oftentimes when we're looking at buildings from the 50s and 60s, we're having to come back in and do corrective work just to handle new snowdrift load requirements that are on the roof. And as you add solar panels, you create more snowdrift load for the buildings themselves. And so those two factors become sort of problematic. I'd point to the work that Wright-Hennepin is doing currently with their solar farm. They have the economy of scale. They don't have them on buildings. They put them on the ground, and they advertise them to the public as this allows you to take part in solar energy without the cost of buying the panels or the need to maintain them. And I think those two statements right there show that to make that investment makes it a little bit challenging for the typical homeowner, or especially in your case where you have so much square footage for the district, a way of making that really viable. Now what we've been looking at for the buildings is, for example, on all of the additions, especially with the high school where we're doing major additions to that building, looking at where we can structure the roof for this, looking at where it can be implemented in the future. We remain optimistic that with nanotechnology advances that the panels will become lighter, that there'll be ways of incorporating that onto items that aren't necessarily the structural weight or design of current solar panels. And so we look towards the future for that, much like we look towards how we can expand onto the buildings with additions or implement any future technologies that come up to make it more affordable. It's actually interesting, we had Southview students here tonight. We were contacted by Michael McDonald last month about the same question, can we put solar panels on the high school? We have an open invitation to the students to come by our office, talk with our engineers about how we would look at this, work with either the project architects working on the project or Eric Hamilton from the district to look at what we've studied and consider some of the same information that we brought forward to you as a board and a facilities committee on it.
Thank you. And
the number one advantage to it, every study that you read around schools is it's better as an educational tool at this point than as an energy saving tool at this point. So,
just as a word of encouragement to the students, I mean, certainly if someone brings an idea to you that you haven't thought of that would work,
oh, absolutely.
I think you'd find a lot of support in the board for changing plans to
free
incorporate
labor,
it.
sure. No, we think. As part of our mission, our goal as architects that work in the educational field is, I wish I had that when I was in high school, that I had an architect or an engineer I could go to and they would show me what's going on. We'd love to have students come to the office, sit down, have these same types of discussion that we're having, because I think it not only becomes informative for both sides, but it triggers new ideas for them as students.
Thanks.
So, Vaughn, maybe you want to give your phone number to them?
Susan can get a hold of us for anybody that wants to.
And I would just add that actually we had a student on the high school core planning team who did actually take advantage of that to sit down and meet with them. So, we do want to encourage that as an educational component as well.